when we ship milk, it was delivered to the houses in a thing like that on the windows over there, only in quart jugs. And that had a paper top. I forget where that bottle actually came from, but it was one that was used in Burlington.
Now, so when you bring it to the place you were talking about, like on Lakeview Terrace, and
They had a pasteurizer there. They put it into a big holding tank, and they pasteurized it. And then they went to the bottler and they bottled it, put the paper top on those jugs. I drank it right straight from the cow. Best milk you can get.
That actually is true.
And I don't like the stuff that's called skinny milk. My wife says, "Can't you drink that?" And I got a neighbor up on the hill. She was a school teacher, and he was a professor of Dean in Arts down at the University of Vermont. Oh, I'm going to have a glass of milk. Yeah, like, you want some? I said, no. Why? I said, it's not heavy enough for me. Well, I like my milk with a little cream in it. To me, to this day, a treat for me is a glass of milk. You're taken by a jug of milk and the heavy cream, not that little light whipping cream stuff, the heavy cream. You mix some of that in your milk and see what it tastes like. Then you'll have the idea of what I had over here. And we had one cow that tested 8%. And she's the cow I saved my milk from.
Wow.
In other words, she had 8 pounds of butter to 100 pounds of milk. You saved the milk from her. It wasn't this far from the top to cream. The cream was halfway down the jug. That's what I call good.
The 1950s, there was a tremendous determination that milk had to be pasteurized, that it had to be safer. And what that produced was a new rule in Vermont, across the country, where they had to basically have machinery with which all the milk went into a central repository. And they were called bulk tanks. And bulk tanks then could be delivered, trucks would come along and they'd plug into the tank and they collect all the milk, and then it would go to a pasteurizer, to a larger concern, and it would be safe. The problem with bulk tanks is that they were real expensive, and so lots of small Vermont farmers in the 1950s and 60s were largely started to go out of business. It's the beginning of, up to that time, when I was a kid, there were more cows than people in Vermont. And in South Burlington, rest assured, there were probably 10 times as many cows as people. But a lot of these tiny little farms are put out of business by the bulk tank rules, and a lot of them consolidate into larger farms. So that's really the problem. It's never been dairy farming has never been terribly prosperous since the 1950s, and if you look at the numbers of farms, there's been a steady decline during that time, and South Burlington would be pretty much typical of that.
Oh, we had probably 25 cows and we milked the cows by hand. My mother milked the cows. She helped my dad. And the hay was brought in loose. And there was no refrigeration. To cool the milk, they put the milk in it was a well, and the night's milk, they would dump the cans in the well, cool it, and in the morning they'd milk the cows. Then they'd bring the milk to a creamery where they process the milk. But there's been a lot of changes. Then we went to we expanded the barn, made it bigger, and we had probably 40 cows. And they got the automatic milkers, and we got the cooler it was a square box, and put the cans in the cooler and to cool the milk. And then the next morning they'd bring it to the creamery and they'd process it. And then they went to a bulk tank where they got rid of all the cans, and they would milk the cows, and it went from the cow right to the bulk tank through a pipeline, and that was a lot easier. and faster. There wasn't quite so much work as milking them by hand. And then my dad bought a baler, and we started baling the hay instead of bringing it in loose. It was a lot faster and a lot easier than loose hay. And then we got up to 100 cows, milking cows, and we had about 150 head so we could milk at least 70 year round. And then we ended up selling them. Now the cows are all gone. There's these developments, man, it's just house after house. And they're close together, they're very close.
This was one field here. I used to mow hay on this with an Super M diesel, and 10 miles an hour. Can you imagine the hay standing up after you've gone 10 feet away from it? Then it would fall. It was fun mowing this. Yes, it did. It changed a lot. And I'm going to be the first one to admit, I built the first house on Dorset Street beside the old ones. You're looking at it right here. And I did that in 1969, 70. And after that, it's gone downhill since. Of course, don't get me wrong. When I say downhill, I'm used to looking at houses that have some space in between. You look at this development out here, there's 20 feet at the most between these houses.
I'd like to see the land, open land. They keep building these houses. This friend, we used to be friends with a guy on Dorset Street there. They put 400 houses there, and they're right on top of each other. They're about 20 feet apart, 10 feet apart, and they're packing them all in. And they keep building there. Pretty soon there's going to be no land left for them to go out, like to walk to cross-country ski or and just have open land. They keep building these houses, and I think it'd be nice if they could leave some land open. And that's what we're trying to work a deal with them, to leave this land open. We got 100 acres and 60 acres in Shelburne, 100 in South Burlington, and we're pretty close. I think they really want to work with us and leave the land open, which I think would be nice.